and welcome to another Guild Ball Informer video. As always, you're joined by me, Jay, and today we've got a very special guest, which is...
Jamie Perkins.
Jamie Perkins has joined us. I figured today, since we're doing Meet the Morticians, we'd get Mr. Mortician himself in, the man in the know, so the word on the street is.
Well. So he says.
Yeah, and I figured, as usual, we'll give you a rundown of the 7 players, one by one, what they can do, things like that, and then at the end we'll maybe talk about tactics and how they work well together.
Yeah, sprinkle some tips and tricks, and how they combo well together.
Sounds good to me. So we will start with Obulus as usual. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get straight into it. Cheers, guys. Okay, guys, we're going to start off with the captain, Obulus. One of my favourite players. I'm sure one of Jamie's as well.
Absolutely.
Very good player. So we'll jump straight in. Obulus is move 4-6, so he's not the fastest, but he definitely makes up for that in other areas, as we will get onto. He's attack of 6 with a kick to 6. Something you'll see throughout the Morticians is a fairly low to average kick range. Again, something they make up with in other areas. Defense 4 plus 1 armor, which is good. And then one of the big things off his stat line is influence 5-8, so he generates more than your average captain.
Yeah, he's a complete wizard.
Yeah, he is very good. And then we'll have a look at his character traits. We'll start with Shadow-like, which of course is at the start of this model's activation. He may make a 2-inch dodge. Invaluable when he's bogged down, just means he's going to get out of trouble or can reposition himself very well. And then coupled with unpredictable movement, guys, which is once per turn, when an enemy model ends an advance in this model's melee zone, you may make a 2-inch dodge. So it means, other than your 2-inch melee guys going into base contact, if you go for him, he's going to get out the way again. Another great reposition tool to keep him out of trouble and where you want him to be. And then his legendary, which is arguably one of the best in the game, would you say?
I'd say situationally one of the best.
Yeah.
If you can find the right moment for it, it's crippling.
Late game, I think late game it is tempting to use it early game, but late game it can be quite massive, I'd imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's Rigor Mortis, guys, which means enemy team lose their current momentum. The friendly team gains momentum equal to the momentum loss caused by this action. This legendary play does not last until the end of the turn. So if you can see, for example, a fisherman team lining up for a shot in a couple of activations, you can just remove that ability from them. Yep. You can guarantee that you're going to get the next turn, things like that. There are a mass of situations where that is going to be very helpful.
The game we played this morning, there was a point at which, later on, I think it was turn 4 or 5, you were just starting to come back into the game again, and you'd managed to pile up a bit of momentum. I think you're up to 5. And I just thought, well, at this point, you have a chance at coming back into the game again. I need to stamp that out straight away and took it all away from you. Yeah,
and it sucks when it happens, but it is what it is. So I think we'll flip over to the back of his card, guys. We'll run through his playbook and then we'll do his character plays. So for 1 successful hit, he can do 1 damage or a momentous 1-inch dodge. For 2 damage, he can do a 2-inch dodge. For 3 hits, not damage, sorry. For 3 successful hits, he can do a tackle or a momentous 2 damage. 4 successful hits, he can do a knockdown. And on 5 successful hits, he can do 3 damage or a momentous push and dodge. What do you think of his playbook?
Well, something that's interesting to note straight away is a lot of players have got a playbook that's the same length as the number of tack they have. So his playbook is actually only 5 options long when he's got 6 tack. So it's actually quite a strong playbook for somebody that's even though he's only a tack 6 model, it's a bit easier access to wrapping than some other people do. If you can knock other players down, or if you can have him a little bit of attack support, you can actually deal quite a lot of damage as well, because you can potentially have 8 attacks in a turn.
Yeah, the beauty of his playbook as well, looking at it straight away, you could do damage and dodge yourself back out for the potential counter-attack.
Absolutely.
So you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And those easy access to 2-inch dodges give him very easy access to safety. If the unpredictable movement hasn't kept him safe from melee attacks, then a counter-attack and a 2-inch dodge certainly will.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a pretty solid playbook, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then character plays, and this is where he gets cool for me. Confidence. Costs 1 with a 4-inch range, and it is sustained. Target friendly model can re-roll 1 or more dice during its next attack or character play during its activation. That's much better than it initially seems. From learning the Morticians recently, that has actually guaranteed me casket time in someone where I wouldn't have. Otherwise, it's I think that's massive. For 1 influence as well, it's a very good character play.
For sure. I mean, you're not going to get use of it all the time. It can be a bit situational. You're after just better off buying more attacks if Obulus is in a combat himself. But I mean, if you ever get the chance to throw confidence onto Cosset before she's going to go in and rip somebody's face off, with the amount of attack dice that she's throwing at somebody, rerolling all the misses at that, suddenly she's probably cleaving someone in half.
That's exactly what I did, and with the reroll, everything hit. Exactly. And at that point, Cosset did what she needed to do.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. And then the second one, misdirection. Costs 4, 8-inch range. Target enemy model loses 1 influence. This model may immediately allocate 1 influence to a friendly guild model within 4 inches. Does that include himself?
It does.
It does include himself. So that's, again, that's very good if you can see that a model has the set amount of influence for the obvious play, i.e. the next activation goal.
Yep.
It potentially does have situations where it may be better to use than Puppet Master, would you say?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Pardon me. Situationally better. If you can, it is going to be one where you have to know what the opponent's going to be doing during their turn. There's some very mean uses of it. I mean, if somebody's on 1 influence, the difference between 1 and 0 is obviously huge because it means they've got no options for the turn at all, which is even bigger on a player like Rage or Boar. You can also do some really nice combinations with it with people with other influence manipulation abilities. So we'll talk about Ghast later on, but keep misdirection in mind when we're looking at Fear. Because when you can combo 2 things together like that, where Fear is also sucking up influence resources, you can really hamstring a team before they've even had a turn.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then his last one, which is potentially one of the most talked about in the game, for sure, one of the handiest as well, which is Puppet Master. So it has a cost of 4 and an 8-inch range, and it reads, this model gains 1 influence. Target model immediately makes a jog, pass, or attack without spending influence. If target model is an enemy model, it counts as the friendly model during this action. This character play can only be used once per turn, thank God.
Yeah.
So the key things that jump out about Puppet Master is, if you get it off, which you are likely to on 4 dice, it's actually only going to cost 3 influence, because you gain 1 back.
You gain 1 back if you hit with it.
Yes, absolutely. But with the 4 dice, you're hoping you're going to hit with it.
And if you want to as well, if you're really worried about hitting a model, you can always confidence yourself first.
Exactly.
To reroll the misses on the Puppet Master. I've done that before now.
That's something I've not thought about, but I could definitely see the importance of that.
When I was playing games against Dave Farboard in playtest, I'm going off a bit of a tangent here, but it was like, you can't get the ball off velocity, I'm defense 6 and nimble, you might miss your Puppet Master. That's true, but when I throw an extra die at it because of momentum, and then I reroll it with confidence, I'm effectively throwing 10 dice at it with a Puppet Master. I'm going to roll the 6 on one of those.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd still not get it off. But just the ability to be able to make an opponent player make a jog, pass, or attack, it's huge.
Yeah, it is. We could actually do an entire video just on the uses of Puppet Master.
Yeah,
with that many
massive.
things that you can do with it. I mean, the most important thing to get your mind around is that they count as a friendly model when using Puppet Master on an enemy target.
Absolutely. So you gain momentum from a pass, etc.
And you can do pass reactions, pass and move, give and go, those kind of things, which can... I mean, if you set it up right, you can actually have Obulus doing a shark-style goal on his own from the other half of the pitch, and he didn't have the ball at the start of his activation.
Absolutely.
Do some absolutely horrendous things with it.
Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of a Puppet Mastered pass snapshot goal against me, which made me feel a little bit sick.
Yes, I've done that before as well.
So it's definitely one of the most versatile and strongest character plays in the game, arguably.
Absolutely, it's huge. It does have some direct counters, some specifically Clone, because Clone counters everything.
Yeah.
But it is definitely up there as one of the most powerful abilities that exist.
Yeah. So that, guys, is Obulus's card in its entirety. You've seen the front and the back. What do you think, Jamie, of Obulus on the whole?
I think he is like a toolbox in a box. So there's so many
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a toolbox in one guy. So I mean, there's so many things you can do with him. He can be a beta, because you can just throw extra influence on him, and he's not going to do that much damage in 1 attack, but over 8 attacks he can do a horrendous amount of damage.
Oh yeah.
There's almost always something you can do with Puppet Master, but the thing about Obulus is you always have a choice of different things you can do. Provided you've given him at least 4 influence in a turn, there's always something horrendous you can do to the enemy team if you think about it enough.
Yeah, you have to give him 4 a turn. That's literally a no-brainer in allocating influence. And what you said about being a beta as well, there are a couple of occasions where it's very easy to get distracted with Puppet Master in every turn. I've gone, actually, do you know what? I'm going to give him 6 to 8, and I'm just going to beat on something until it's not there anymore.
Yep.
He can, and like you say, with his short playbook, he can really turn his hand to anything, really.
He can do, yeah. So the only downside of Obulus is learning to play him quickly. If you're ever going to play him in a competition, remembering that you're in a timed environment, because he's got so many choices to do. The hard part of Obulus is figuring out what the best plan is to do quickly, because you can just lose all your time activating Obulus on his own. That's his downside.
Did you use him when you played Speedball at BritCon for the 2-minute activation?
No, because me and Loxham actually swapped factions. He played with the Morticians. So I saw him once get through an 8 influence activation in 2 minutes, and he was sweating at the end of that.
Yeah, I can't see me ever activating him in under 2 minutes. Yeah. So guys, well, that's Obulus done. We'll give you a look at the captain. I think next we'll go to the mascot and then follow through the big guys. So we'll come back with Dirge. Okay guys, so next up we've got Dirge, one of my favourite mascot models, I must say. I do like the whole pillar thing. My models are painted by Yggdrasil Painting Studios, by the way, guys. Link in the description. Shameless plug, don't care. So we'll have a look at Dirge, and I will put the front of his card up on screen now. So the first thing is arguably one of the coolest. Movement 8/10 inches.
Yep.
Fastest character in the game at the moment?
Fastest on just movement stats.
Just movement stats. Yeah. It can really move. I've played a game literally where for 3 turns until I could win on takeouts, Dirge literally just had mist chasing him, just flying up and down my goal line for the game with the ball. Dirge, so 8'10", very, very big movement. Tack of 2, fair enough, it's a mascot, I suppose. Kick of 4 inches, okay. Defense 5+, which is good. No armor, of course. And influence generates 1, can be allocated a maximum of 2. So a fairly standard-ish mascot profile, I'd say, obviously with maybe slightly less tack, increased movement.
Yeah, he's the thing about Dirge that you've got to remember is he's going to mascots that have an ability to be brought back onto the pitch, which we'll get to, are always going to have their stats decreased because of that, because they're mascots that can come back. Not every
absolutely,
mascot can. So he's got quite low stats. They're always allowed to have one outstanding stat, and that for Dirge is going to be his movement. And also he's got a very good defense, which keeps him alive because his 5 boxes of health certainly won't.
Absolutely, yeah. So character traits, guys. Dark Doubts. When this model suffers the taken out condition as a result of an enemy attack or play, the enemy team immediately suffers -4 momentum, which is great. You see a lot of that, I suppose, throughout the Morticians, gaining momentum, and obviously with rigor mortis and stuff, stopping your opponent having momentum.
Sapping the resources from the opponent is something that the Morticians specialise in.
Absolutely. And then we've got follow-up, guys. After an enemy model performs an advance that takes it out of this model's melee zone, this model may immediately move up to its base, move directly towards it. Very handy for tying players down. You're likely going to try and do it on someone who doesn't have reposition movements, so like dodges. But it's very, and again, it's another tool to help the model move around the table.
Yeah, help him move around. Great. His mobility is very high, and it also, it's good for defending your other players. If someone's trying to move away or move through Dirge's melee range, then you can follow and give them just a mobile tack debuff, because obviously he's going to be crowding them out wherever they go.
Absolutely. And then last of all, again, in the theme of movement, flying. When this model moves, it ignores other models' bases and terrain. It cannot end its movement overlapping another base or barrier. Brilliant if you need to get across, effectively, a human wall. Or, it completely adds to what Dirge does, which is get where he needs to and quite quickly.
Yep.
And he has 5 boxes of health, which is fair given the other things on his card, as we mentioned.
Correct.
So, guys, we'll throw up the back of his card on the screen now, and we'll look at his playbook. What a playbook. It's only 2 rows. So the first one, for 1 successful hit, you can generate 1 damage, or activate the singled out character play, which we'll get onto in a minute. And for 2 successful hits, he can tackle the ball, or he can do a momentous 1-inch dodge. So I think that's the smallest playbook in the game as well.
Yeah, well, he's tack 2, isn't he?
Tack 2, yeah. Like you say, I suppose the tack always correlates the playbook, yeah. And then character play, singled out, which we mentioned, friendly model, gains +2 tack against target enemy model. Pretty good, pretty handy.
Useful. I mean, you're not always going to put... Personally, I don't put a lot of influence into Dirge, because one of his outstanding abilities is that you can get a lot out of him for not putting any influence onto him. But singled out is a good, it's a very good buff if you're ever going to put an influence into him. So.
Yeah, he's got his place. So that's Dirge, guys. Again, a very good support. I think it's a very good free activation. Literally no influence, a free move. Call your opponent's hand, get them to commit, things like that.
For sure, and he moves moves a long way. He moves as far as some players sprint for 8 inches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you say, it's a free activation. You don't mind about him being taken out, because if you've brought Silence, you can bring him back. Silence having recreation.
Yeah.
And Dark Doubts is obviously not quite as good as something like Loved Creature, but Dark Doubts is a good debuff to the opponent.
Yeah,
so you don't mind too much if Dirge is taken out. You don't mind giving away those 2 VPs.
Yeah. One thing we're going to get onto, guys, as well. I would say Dirge's best qualities, if you will, are stuff that aren't on his card but on other people's, which we'll cover as we go through the video. So that's Dirge, guys, and then I think we'll tackle the big guys next. Let's start with Casket. Okay, guys, next up is Casket, one of my favourite models. I do like that. I believe he's a bit love-hate. I do like this model a lot.
I think he's great. He's actually one of the reasons, him, Gast and Obulus are the reasons why I fell in love with the way the Morticians look. I think they're great.
Yeah, it's very cool. So very cool model. Very cool profile, which we're about to tackle. So I think I'll throw the front of his card up on screen now. He is movement 5'7", so it's slightly faster than most guys on a 40mm base, which is good. Tack 5, guys. Kick 2/6, that's okay. Defense 3+1 armor. Now that's worth noting. Big guys tend to be 2+ with or without armor across the board. Being 3+ with armor, very handy. It just gives him that little... He's a little bit more durable, and he doesn't become what the big guys tend to, which is the target for Sharks getting off his big plays
Yep.
and stuff like that. He's not going to bleed momentum and activate big character plays as easily
Nope.
when targeted.
Yeah, the difference between 2 and 3 defense is huge. I mean, he's also got that one armor point as well, which obviously stacks quite nicely with that. But being def 3 means if you're ever going to do defensive stance, he's going up to a def 4. Half the dice thrown at you are going to miss.
Yep.
Suddenly, these are really nice numbers to start playing with.
Yeah, absolutely. It does make all the difference. And influence, he generates 1, and he can be assigned 4. So that's his stats, guys. We'll have a look at his character traits. So the first one, tough hide, quite standard stuff. Enemy plays that cause damage or playbook damage, results targeting this model are reduced by 1 damage. So again, it just makes him stay there a little bit longer. And then we've got Foul Odor, which is a 3-inch aura. The open ground within this aura is treated as rough ground. So that, guys, does apply to friendly and enemy models.
It does. Something to note, though, is that there's been an errata about that, which is that it only applies to other models. It doesn't apply to Casket himself. Because most auras that you count as being in your own aura, but Casket doesn't.
I've always played it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, to be honest. But yeah, so that can be... I've seen Jamie and Chris play, and Jamie's been struggling with Chris's Union as of late, and using Fangtooth with that ability, just to put in the way of Mist, so the planned move he had doesn't quite make it. It can literally be used to quite good ability, that, I think.
Yeah, Foul Odor is something that stacks with one of the character plays he's got on the back of his card as well for slowing other players down. But he's just, as you say, it's bad for the Morticians if they don't plan for it, but it's really bad for other players. It can completely safe from charge moves. As you say, it's just an area that you can put in between other areas of rough terrain, and it just completely bogs down enemy teams. And he's not someone the opponent wants to hit anyway, because his counter attacks do his knockdowns, and he's a tough hide model, as you say, so he's not the easiest person to actually take out. So it's a very useful ability, as long as the Morticians plan for it, and there are ways for the Morticians to play around it, but we can get onto that later.
Yeah, of course. And then his last one, guys, which is Reanimate. Absolutely brilliant character trait. I do love this one. Once per turn, when this model is reduced to 0 HP, before suffering the taken out condition, recover 3 HP and remove all conditions. Amazing. And you will find out this guy, I've noticed in games between me and my friends lately, he tends to become a target for something we're going to get to next, actually. People tend to target him because this terrifies them. So that Reanimate is quite handy as well. It stops him giving away the VPs quite as easily.
It effectively takes him from 17 boxes to 20 boxes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if when he's down to those last couple of boxes of health, if he's down on 2 boxes and he takes a massive damage roll, he's not taking 4 or 5, he's only taking up to the 17, then that stops, the attack finishes, and he gets the 3 health back. So it can sometimes count as 22 health.
Yeah, absolutely,
a big damage roll there. And also, remember as well, it removes all the conditions, so if he's knocked down, he's going to stand up again for those last 3 health boxes, and it might keep him alive.
Very handy thing to have. And then the big one, guys, which I think we could do a video on all about itself, but we are going to talk about in some length, I'm sure, is his legendary play, guys, which is Casket Time. When this model inflicts the taken out condition on an enemy human model, that model cannot gain Icy Sponge tokens and counts as 4 VPs. So it basically means the model isn't ever coming back on.
Correct.
It's gone, and it's 4 VPs.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, he is currently also the only non-captain to have a legendary play in the game as well, so it's going to be a huge ability. There was one point in the playtest where it was a heroic.
What?
It was a heroic. that got changed quite swiftly.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Once he hit the table. So yeah, this is, again, as you say, we can talk about this one for quite a while, and it's the ability that I spend most of my time talking about. When people realise that I'm a playtester and that I had a hand in the balance of these models, people ask me, isn't Casket Time over the top? Well, actually it's not. It's a very hugely powerful ability, but when you look at the rest of the things that Casket can do, I mean, we're going to turn to his playbook in a minute, but he doesn't actually cause that much damage. It's something I mentioned recently on the Guild Ball Tonight podcast, is that even if you give him 4 influence, the average amount of damage he's going to cause to an average enemy model, which is defense 4, armor 1, is 8 damage. He's going to get 2 hits because he's tack 5, take 1 away for armor, which means he's going to do 2 momentous damage. Over 4 attacks he does 8 damage. He cannot take out most players on his own. He's going to have a lot of help. He's a slow player. Any kind of tack debuff, and he's really struggling, he's only going to do 1 damage per attack.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so and there are plenty of other ways to get around it. Counter attacks against Casket, he's really susceptible to counter attacks. Being in cover to take away attack dice from him, pushing him back with kick bolts, whatever. As I say, I'll go on about it for a while, but there's a lot of things that you can do against Casket Time if you play around it. That said, the buffs of Casket Time are huge. Taking a player out, if you can do it early in the game, put somebody in the box, as I call it, then they're not getting that player back at all. They're not generating influence from the rest of the game. You're an activation up permanently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you
bring... The thought of Avarice and Greed in that team then becomes worrying, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you have Avarice and Greed to be an activation up, if you have Silence, that your mascot is always coming back. So just having those activations chained together is huge, and he's also cancels 4 victory points. So you've scored a goal and taken out a player.
Absolutely.
You know? But I will say it is a reasonably balanced ability in the fact that he doesn't do very much to take players out from full health on his own. He's a slow player.
You have to commit a lot of resources to get it off.
When you have Casket on the field, he is your plan. You don't have another plan of scoring goals or anything like that. You have to play single-mindedly towards getting somebody in the box because it is that difficult to do. It takes the whole team to do it.
It does. So. And I've found as well, especially I tried it a lot at BritCon, you can end up, what you gain from getting someone in the casket, you can end up losing, like Cosset, for example. Yeah. Cosset played a big part in my casket time, but in doing so, it left her very exposed, and it doesn't always gain you the 4 VPs that you think, because you can put yourself in a position to sacrifice potentially more. But it is a very good play, and we'll probably have a little chat about it after all the characters when we're looking at tactics and stuff. So, without further ado, we'll jump to the back of his card. Sorry, worth noting, he has 17 health boxes. So we'll jump to the back of his card now. That will be on screen now. We'll go through his playbook. So for 1 successful hit, he does 1 damage. For 2 successful hits, he can activate the Heavy Burden character play or do 2 momentous damage. For 3 successful hits, he can do a knockdown or a tackle, both non-momentous. For 4 successful hits, he can do 3 damage or 2 momentous damage with a 2-inch push. And then for 5 successful hits, he can do 3 damage with a 2-inch push. What do you think about that playbook?
It's an okay playbook, as I say. A lot of him is balanced around the fact he's got that huge casket time play. So this isn't the best playbook in the world. Most of the time he's going to be doing that Heavy Burden, which is a very useful character play, or that 2 momentous damage. He's got knockdown is a nice ability. His tackle is quite high up for a TAC 5 model. He's got some nice 3 damages, but they're quite high up his playbook. As I say, he's not going to be doing a lot of damage to somebody unless he's got a decent amount of TAC support for it.
Yeah, I don't think he is there to be dishing out damage. He's there to go in and finish off something that, like as we've just mentioned, the rest of your team have done the work on. I think if his playbook was any better than that, I'd be a little bit worried.
Absolutely.
Truth be told.
Absolutely,
I think it's quite well balanced. So we'll have a look at his character plays. The first one is Ghostly Visage, which costs 1. It has a 4-inch range and it's a 3-inch AoE. Enemy models suffer -0, -4 move and -2 TAC when targeting friendly models within this ongoing effect AoE with a charge. This character play may be used once per turn. What do you think about that one?
This is useful when you stack that with his Foul Odor on the front of his card. If somebody charges, Casket, if they haven't got Glide, if they haven't used the Glide MP ability, if they haven't got Light-footed, suddenly they're taking -6 movement. They'll probably not even get there on the charge, and if they do, they're suffering -2 TAC. For a cost 1 ability, it's very, very good.
Yeah.
And you can protect other models around you as well. If Cosset stood next to you, and you don't know to activate Cosset just yet, but you're worried she's going to take a charge from somebody, you can protect her with Ghostly Visage. It's a very good ability, and it should really be used more, to be honest.
To be honest.
Cost 1, it's really good.
When I've been learning Morticians, I haven't used it that much, but even just through talking through it now, I can see the immediate benefits of even after you've got someone in the casket, you may have somebody way out of position. It just gives them that little bit of extra safety net, which is handy. Yeah. And then his other character play, guys, is Heavy Burden, which costs 1, or can be activated on 2 successful hits on the playbook, as we mentioned. 6-inch range, and it is a sustainability. Target enemy model suffers -4, -4 movement, and -2 to their dice pool on character plays. This character play may be used once per turn. That's really good.
It is. It's very good. Actually, hilariously, just from a fluff standpoint, I laughed when I read that the first time because I didn't know Midas had it when I was reading Casket first. I thought, that's great. That obviously means he's just taken the casket off his back and thrown it at somebody. To weigh them down, which amused me at first. But yeah, in terms of on the pitch, it's a very good character ability. I mean, there aren't many movement debuffs in the Morticians at the moment, so that's why they make quite a good use of knockdown wherever they have the opportunity to use it. Heavy Burden's a fantastic ability. It's just he has sometimes have problems getting it off because he'll want to be casket timing somebody, or he'll want to be knocking somebody down. Heavy Burden is something that you could probably do with using more, and I could probably do with using more, actually, thinking about it.
Yeah, very good character play, though. Very good rounded profile. Like you say, a lot of people can, especially when they've not played the Morticians before, and somebody manages to get off a turn 1 casket time, people start to go, right, that's not fair. But like you say, that is actually a quite well-rounded profile, I'd say.
It's about knowledge is power with Casket. You don't just run somebody out in front of him because you're going to get dragged in and Casket timed. It's that straightforward. If you walk into it, then that's your own fault. It's just to sound a bit harsh about it. But it really is knowledge is power. You can play against it a few times and you realise that there are things that you can do to mitigate what his abilities do.
Absolutely. And one thing we'll mention just as food for thought until we get to the end of the video, Casket time with Puppet Master.
Yes, and Law when we come on to that.
Absolutely. So next up, guys, we're going to do Ghast. Okay, guys, next up is Ghast. As you'll notice by the shot straight away, A second big guy player in the Mortician team. The only team to have 2 big guys, I think, Jamie?
Yep, for now.
Yep. So we'll have a quick look at...
outside the Union, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, outside the Union. So we'll have a look at his stats and then we'll work through his card. I'll put the front of his card up on screen now. So he is a movement of 4'7", so again, he's got a slight edge on most big guys in the way of movement. He's attack of 6, he has a kick 1/6 inches. Again, an interesting thing for the Mortician big guys, he's defense 3, 1 armor, which is brilliant, and he is influence, he generates 1 and can be assigned 3 per turn. Pretty good standard stat line, I'd say. I like it.
Yeah. And it's something you'll find with the Mortician heavies in general. They don't tend to have quite as much health as other sort of damage, other tanks, just because they've got that higher defense instead.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we will do. We'll have a look at his character traits, guys. So the first one, Rising Anger. The first time this model is damaged by an enemy model each turn, the friendly team gains 2 momentum. Brilliant.
Fantastic, yeah. I mean, if you haven't got any MPs at the start of the turn, this is why one of the reasons, it's half of the reason why Ghast is actually such a good resource tank. So he doesn't have Tough Hide, as we're going to read to the rest of the players in a minute. He doesn't soak up damage straight up quite as well as other tanks do. He's just going to take it straight onto his health. But if you just throw him in there at the start, if you haven't got any MPs because it's the start of the turn and you're going second, if they choose to attack Ghast, I mean, we'll get onto Fear in a minute, but you're going to generate some MPs off the bat because they're damaging him, which instantaneously means if they attack him again, you can counterattack, or you can heal him afterwards.
Exactly.
Having having 2 MPs from Rising Anger is huge if you've got none to start with. Or, if somebody forgets about it later on in a turn, it can swing the balance between going first and going second, it can swing the initiative roll. Very useful ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one we've just briefly mentioned is Fear, which reads, the enemy team must spend an additional 1 influence on the first attack or character play target in this model each turn. Now we've just played a game and that caught me out with what I had planned a couple of times actually. Yeah. It's easy to forget and my God, is it handy?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taking resources. You're literally stealing an influence from the enemy team if they attack him every single turn.
Absolutely.
Misdirection on Obulus costs 4, just to point out how important it is taking influence away from somebody. And he gets this for free every turn as long as they choose to attack
I would take that over the Tough Hide we just mentioned any day of the year.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Sure.
And I think that keeps him safer than the Tough Hide potentially would for a big guy.
In a lot of situations it really, really will. Yeah. And then there's some other, some really sneaky combinations. If somebody stood in front of Ghast and they've only got that 2 influence, they can only buy 1 attack against him anyway if Fear hasn't been procced yet. If you then misdirect one of that influence off them, they physically cannot buy an attack against Ghast because they're too afraid.
Brilliant, yeah. So he's got a couple of very handy character traits there, guys, and he has 21 boxes of health. So I think what we'll do now is we'll flip over to the back of his card. Worth noting he is a 2-inch melee model. And so his playbook reads as follows, guys. So for 1 successful hit, he can do 1 damage. For 2 successful hits, he can do a 2-inch push or a momentous knockdown. For 3 successful hits, he can do 2 damage or 2 damage with a knockdown. For 4 successful hits, he can tackle or do a momentous 3 damage. For 5 successful hits, he can activate the unmasking character play and gain a momentum, which we'll move on to in a second. And then for 6 successful hits, he can do 4 damage. So he's very good at dishing. Anyone who you see a 4 on the playbook, they can really put the hurt in.
Yep.
If you can get crowding out and the charge off and stuff, you can really start piling on the damage.
Yep.
So definitely more of an offensive character than Casket.
Yeah, for sure. This guy, he really wants to get stuck in there. You will give, unlike Casket, who often won't get many influence unless you're going to go for the Casket time, this guy's going to get some influence every turn.
Yeah.
He's got that 2-inch melee range to engage a couple of characters. He wants to be stuck in the middle, tying people down. He's really good at parting blows because he's got the knockdown on the 2. He's very good at counterattacks, as you saw this morning, because he's got easy access to knockdown again, and the double push on his 2 column can actually be more harmful than the knockdown, more often than not.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone's charged into you, they've used their movement, you push them away with the counterattack and they can't go anywhere.
Done. That 4 influence they may have is effectively wasted, and it, like you say, it being on 2 is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. So he wants to get stuck in there, and even though he won't always dish the damage, he's got the opportunity to, he's got the potential to do so, but he's more about just haywiring teams and getting stuck in.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we'll do now is, guys, we'll move on to his character plays. So the first one is the unmasking, and he activates this by getting 5 successful hits on his playbook, and it's a 3-inch pulse. All of the models within the pulse, so not himself, suffer a 4-inch push directly away this model and 3 damage. Very good.
Very good. I find it a bit situational because it damages and pushes all models. So I mean, something to remember is that all pushes in Guild Ball, you choose the distance. You don't go 4 inches, you go up to that distance. So in that sense, it's a little bit better. But like Scything Blow, it can be a problem for you in that you're going to damage friendly models. So the best time to use it is if you alpha into a team of closely packed models with Ghast on his own. You've got the choice of completely blowing his team open by pushing them all away, if you get the unmasking off, doing some damage to him as well, or keeping some of the ones in that you want to be engaged with Ghast. Really, really useful ability in the right situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is Ghast, guys. So we've covered the big guys, and I think next we're going to do Silence. Okay, guys, next up we've got Silence. One of the more interesting players in the Morticians. It's very much a... We'll get your opinions on it. Feel free to stick them in the comments below. But very much a do I, don't I. It has massive benefits to taking Silence, which we're going to get onto. What do you think of Silence, Jamie?
I really like him. I think he's got a good range of abilities, and one of the most interesting stats that you'll get your eyes on straight away is his influence ability. He's an influence battery for the Morticians, because he brings 3 to the table. I mean, you don't necessarily want to put a lot into Silence every turn as well, so it's often he can just stand there, be a ball carrier, or he could just be a bit out of the way, throwing the occasional spell in, but he's always going to throw that 3 influence into your team every turn.
Exactly.
Which can be huge.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of the time I do want to drop him. I always decide against it because of that 3 influence into your team is massive. So what we'll do, guys, we'll pop the front of his card up on screen now so you can see what we're talking about, and I'll just run through his stats. He is a movement of 5'6", he's attack 5, and he has a kick 3'6", so arguably he's the best kicker for the Morticians.
Yeah, he's tied with Graves for that. Tied with Graves for the best
yeah.
stats.
So him and Graves are what you have in the way of players who are going to perform kicks. He is a defensive 5+ with 0 armour, and as we just mentioned, he generates 3 influence, which is massive. The best non-captain player.
I think so.
Yep. And he can be assigned up to 4 a turn. So a very interesting stat line there, and we'll move on to his character traits. So the first one, Creation Dirge. Once per turn, this model may spend 2 MP during its activation to remove the taken out condition from the friendly named model and place it in base contact with full HP. So that's where Dirge instantly becomes much better. The fact that it's a mascot you can get back on the pitch, so you're not forfeiting, giving your opponent the double activation for the game.
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, if you can hunt down the opposing team's mascot so they can't come back, you know that you're always going to be an activation up, as you just said. There are other situational times you can use it as well. If you're going to send Silence into a melee and Dirge has been taken out previously, you can bring Dirge back and have him as attack buff, bring him straight back into the melee straight away.
Makes sense.
As an attack debuff as well. So I mean, if you think Silence is kind of about to be taking some punishment, you can bring Dirge back, and suddenly the opposing team is going to be crowded out. Something to remember as well is when Dirge is taken out, if he's taken out and recreated in the same turn, any influence that you had on him is going to come back with him as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, because influence is removed when you're taken out. So if anything that it's just anything for recreation in general. If you recreate a model that had influence on it when it was taken out in the same turn, it will come back with the same influence it was taken out with.
Nice. And the other key thing with this character trait worth mentioning is models created by this ability do not generate VPs, so you don't have to worry. You're not going to lose more VPs if they take Dirge out again.
Yeah, sorry, I should have said that as well. That's possibly the most interesting aspect of it as well, is that when you bring Dirge back, you say he's free. So you might as well bring him back. 2 MPs is a big cost for doing it, but if you'll always find an opportunity to do that at some point in the game. You might do it just after using Obulus of Legendary Play, so you're massively up on momentum points. To be honest, it might even be worth bringing Dirge back rather than guaranteeing the first turn. It's important to have 6 players on the field at all times if you can.
And then the last one, Kick Support Dirge. Again, another character trait leaning towards Dirge. While within 4 inches of the named model, Dirge, this model gains +1/+1 kick.
Yeah, so Silence isn't the fastest model. In fact, he's one of the slowest models there is, because his sprint is only 6 inches. He's as slow as the big guys. So he's more of a, can be a midfield or backfield player. If you have the ball that's just come out from a goal kick or it lands in a scatter, he's going to accurately pass it to someone else to use it better.
Absolutely.
He's not going to often get up and score a goal, though, because he's just not fast enough.
No, he's not. But it still is a very useful tool to have in the bag, I suppose,
sure.
So what we'll do, we'll flip over to the back of his card on screen now. He has a melee range of 1, which I suppose is quite suitable. He's not going to reach very far with an orb. But so his playbook, guys. So for 1 successful hit, he does 1 damage. For 2 successful hits, he does a momentous 2 damage. For 3 successful hits, he does a momentous 1-inch dodge. 4 successful hits is 3 damage, and 5 successful hits is either an unmomentous tackle or a momentous push dodge. A very good playbook.
Yeah, we were just talking about this before. He's actually got a surprising amount of damage for somebody that's only attack 5, and he's meant to be a wizard.
And when we get into his character plays, you'll see he doesn't read as if he's there for damage, but he can actually, having a momentous 2 on 2, being TAC 5, and obviously he's got the 3 damage on 4 as well. It's doable.
Yeah, there are a lot of similar characters that only have access to the 2 damage, so he can do a surprising amount of damage if you're trapped into a corner, you need him to hit something. But having that 1-inch melee range means he is susceptible to counter-attacks, as a lot of 1-inch melee range characters are.
Absolutely. So we'll cover his character plays, which is one of the more interesting parts of his profile. So the first one, Tucked. It costs 1, and has an 8-inch range, as do all his character plays. If the target enemy model has not activated this turn, it must be the next model the enemy team activates. This character play may only be used once per turn. Does what it says in the tin. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Used in the right situation, it can be game-changing, as can his next one, which we will get onto.
Yeah, I'm going to hold off on what I'm going to say about this until we've read that next one, because I think having the choice of the 2 together is what makes these abilities so good.
Absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll jump straight in with that then. His next character play, guys, is Shut Out, or Shut Up, as I've learnt today. Also costs 1 with an 8-inch range. If the target enemy model has not activated this turn, it must be the last model the enemy team activates. This may only be used once per team. Once per team? Yeah, once per team. Yeah. No, it is. It's once per team. Yeah, I'm used to saying once per turn. It is once per team. So, the two together, brilliant.
Yep. So it makes silence if you want to. You can. I've tried this a few times and it's been very hit and miss because they're cost 1 abilities, so they can you can miss them quite easily even on low defense character. But if you want to, you can have this. You can put 2 influence onto him, and at the start of the turn, look at how much influence is on the opponent and go, you know what, I'm just going to knack your entire turn. You've got Ox with that 5 influence there. He's going last.
Yeah.
And you've got Boar right at the back of the table with 0, or you've got Boiler or someone else with 0 influence.
You're going next.
You're going next.
Yeah.
So you can properly knacker somebody's turn if you know what to do with these 2 abilities. That said, they are only cost 1, so they're going to miss a lot of times. The balance of these abilities is that they are because they cost 1 and they're going to miss. The way that they work is you want to get them on the table early.
Yes.
So you're probably going to do them without any momentum generated as well beforehand. That said, if you're doing them into a low defense team like the Masons or the Brewers, you can really give them problems.
Yeah, and those 2 plays really lean to what I feel the Morticians are about. They're just a massive control team for me.
Yeah, for sure.
They control your opponent's resources, and with silence in the fray, they can also control what your opponent is going to do next activation.
Yep.
It's very interesting when you can pull it off. And then his last one, which is also very good, it's Embalming Fluid, guys. So it costs 2 with an 8-inch range, and this is a 3-inch AoE. All models hit suffer 1 damage and the burning condition. Models entering or ending their activation in the ongoing effect AoE suffer the poison condition. This character play may be used once per turn. Brilliant. It's just a way of him slowing things down. Burning is a serious pain. I'd say it's one of the most underrated status effects.
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, just applying movement debuffs to people is very powerful. I mean, and this guy can do it to multiple models in a turn. So it's probably one of his lesser used character plays. But if you're one of the ones that he's less famous for, I guess. But if there's a lot of times where you're not going to use Tucked and Shutout with silence, and in those situations, this is going to be his best use of influence. The other thing to remember as well is that for the Morticians, even though they're a faction with a guild, without many ranged attacks, this is their only form of ranged damage that I can think of in the guild at the moment. So that this is their only way of sort of reaching out and touching them. They're not the alchemists. They don't have 4 or 5 people with AoE attacks that are going to cause lots of damage from range, or they're not the engineers. This is their only way of sort of, I haven't got many other options, I'm going to do a little bit of damage here. But as you say, the burning part of it is probably the biggest aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. So that guy's his Silence. Very interesting character. He definitely brings a lot to the Morticians in the right situations.
Yep.
Next up, we're going to cover Graves. Alright guys, so next up is Graves. Again, very cool model. Looks a bit sinister, as always. So we'll jump straight in with Graves, I think. So we'll start with his stat line. He has a movement of 5/7 inches. So he's quite average in movement. He can get where he needs to, usually. He's got attack of 6, which is 6 and above is always great. It's your captain tack sort of area. He's got a kick of 3/6 inches, the same as Silence, so he can moderately kick the ball. He's defense 4 with 1 armor, and he generates 1 influence and can have a total of 4. So pretty solid stat line, I'd say, all round.
Yeah.
And then we'll jump onto his character traits. So the first one, damage target. When this model performs a charge against a damaged enemy model, it gains +0/+2 moves, so it instantly gives him a 9-inch charge with his 2-inch melee, so he can really get across the board if he needs to put the hurt in, which is pretty good. And then the other one, again a very handy one, Crucial Artery. When damaged by this model, enemy models suffer the bleed condition. I love that I absolutely love that trait. It's one of my favourites.
Crucial Artery is a fantastic trait, yeah, because bleed is something that is really a catch-22. Do you heal the damage that he's just done, or do you heal the bleed that's going to cause 3 damage eventually?
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, and worth noting, he has 14 boxes of health. So what we'll do, guys, we'll jump straight onto the back of his card. He has a melee range of 2, which is always pretty handy. And let's go over his playbook. So for 1 successful hit, he can do a non-momentous tackle or a non-momentous 1 damage. For 2 successful hits, he can do a momentous 1-inch push or... Sorry, that's it. For 3 successful hits, he can do momentous 2 damage. For 4 successful hits, he can do 3 damage. And then for 5 successful hits on his playbook, he can activate Scything Blow, which we all know and love. And for 6 successful hits, he can activate the Rabid Animal ability. So, let's go over those character plays now. So the first one, Scything Blow. It activates on 5 successful hits. All models within the model's melee zone suffer 3 damage.
Yep, and remembering that this stacks with Crucial Artery as well, so all those models will take 3 damage and bleed. So it's kind of like 6 damage.
Yeah, you position him right, and that is grim.
Yep.
I think it's only right that it takes 1 more hit than Gutters in the fact that he's dishing the bleed out on everybody as well.
For sure.
But you charge him in, so he's tack 10, and that's before any crowding out or anything. If he can get that off in the right position, it can really do a bit of damage.
Yeah, throw him into a low defense model around a couple of other higher defense models, and you're sticking, that three slashing bracket 6 damage on all of those guys together.
Yeah, brutal stuff, especially late turn when there's not much they can do.
Absolutely.
So you can bank on the bleed staying into the maintenance phase.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the other one, guys, Rabid Animal. Target enemy model suffers -4/-4 movement and poison. Which again, pretty handy stuff. I must say I don't use that very often.
No. Graves is actually unusual for the Morticians because he's quite single-minded in his purpose. A lot of the Morticians models have got multiple things that they can do, or they're quite versatile. Graves is just a fighter. He's just a get in there guy and get in there and just get stuck and get fighting. He's a little bit resilient as well because of that defense 4 armor 1. And he's just a sort of, I wouldn't say he's a filler player, but he's something that's very valuable for the Morticians in the fact that they haven't got many single-minded combat players.
Yeah.
And occasionally you will need that against the teams that are going to play better football than you.
Yeah.
I find Graves to be very important for that reason. You can come in and do a reasonable amount of damage for 1 player, and you can come in and deal damage to multiple players at once with Scything Blow and Crucial Artery. And I find him to be a very valuable player, someone that people are quick to dispose of because he doesn't really, because he's not a typical Mortician that he does multiple things. But I find that what he brings to the table is still valuable because if you take away too much damage from the Morticians, you can't play football better than many other teams. So you need to have some strong fighting abilities in your team, or you're just going to get overwhelmed.
That's it. I was about to say the same thing. Graves is pretty much always in my team because with a very much a control element team like the Morticians, once you've done everything to stop your opponent doing what they want to do, you need to have something left.
Yeah, exactly.
To do what you've got to do.
Yeah, you still have to score points. You've got to take players out, and you've got to kick the ball on the goal exactly the same as a lot of other teams have to. And Graves is a method of taking players out.
Absolutely. For that reason, he is a very good player. And I mean, who'd have thought a dude with a pair of scissors on a stick would be lethal? But he is pretty good. Big snips, I call him. Big snips. We like that. Big snips.
It's good.
So that, guys, is Graves, and I've saved my favourite to last, potentially Jamie's as well, we don't know, we'll find out. Last up, guys, we're going to do Cosset. Right, guys, last up is Cosset. My opinion, saving the best till last. I've got some serious love for this player. So we'll jump straight into a card. I'll put the front of her card up on screen now. So we'll start. She is a movement of 7/9, so she's fast. She's very fast, and she is attack of 4, but don't bank on that, we will get to that in a minute. She has a kick of 2 6-inches, so not great, not bad. Defense 4+, no armor, and she generates 2 influence and can be assigned to a turn. So with the stat line, we will then go into her character traits. The first one, crazy. Once per activation, this model may suffer 3 damage to gain +3 attack for the remainder of this activation. Would you ever not do that?
Well, it depends on how much health she's got left. I mean,
that's
the only time you wouldn't use that is if she's really, really close to being taken out and your VPs are very close to the end of the game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to use that in almost every activation. Making her from TAC 4 to TAC 7 is huge, and she's therefore the only TAC 7, inverted commas, TAC 7 model in the Morticians.
Yeah, and the fact that she does have quite easy access to momentum.
Yep.
She literally the done thing with Cosset is go crazy, charge, do some damage, use momentum to heal her back up before the end of her activation.
Yeah. So it's kind of a buff and a negative in that, you can rid yourself of the crazy damage, but at the same time you're accepting you're going to be 1 MP lower than where you would have been if you didn't have to.
Absolutely, yeah. And then her next character trait, which is pretty good, as you'll know from the likes of Boar & Co. Furious, this model may charge without spending influence. So immediately you know if she goes crazy and she can charge for free, she's then also got the 2 influence after the free charge to do more with the TAC 7 as well. So that really does help her be exactly what she is, which is amazing. This, again, huge. You actually pointed this out to me a couple of weeks ago. I was playing it very wrong until I started adapting to it.
This is the selling point of Cosset.
Yeah, absolutely. Damage support, Dirge. While within 4 inches of the name model, this model gains +1 damage to character plays that cause damage. There you go.
The bird is absolutely the word. When you know you're going to get Cosset to do some damage in the team, canny players against the Morticians will not watch where Cosset is going to go. They're going to watch where the bird goes. Because if the bird moves first, if there's nothing within 4 inches or 5 or 6, within 6 inches of the bird, you're relatively safe from this damage. As soon as the bird moves, it's kind of like a fire beacon for where Cosset's roughly going to end up. Because then she's going to follow that bird around, and if she gets into combat with somebody that is within 4 inches of the bird, or is also in combat with the bird in preferable circumstances, she's going to absolutely tear their face off. She gets a full charge with 2 influence off, just with the bird as her attack support and damage support. She's doing something like 12 damage on average. 12 or 13.
She's crazy.
She's the most. In the Morticians with 2 influence on her, she will deal more damage than anybody else will with 2 influence.
And then one thing worth noting. Further down a card, guys, you will see she is 12 health.
Yes.
So as we all say, she's very much a glass cannon.
Absolutely, yeah.
But used properly, she is devastating to opponent teams. She can do so much damage over the course of a game. We were talking earlier, sometimes you don't mind losing her because you'll have got so much out of her that the 2 VPs were worth potentially what she's generated for you. And then what we'll do, guys, is we'll throw the back of a card up on screen now. So, playbook. For 1 successful hit, she does 1 damage. For 2 successful hits, she does a momentous 1-inch dodge or momentous 2 damage. For 3, she does a tackle. On 4, she has a momentous 3 damage. On 5, she has a 2-inch push. On 6, she has a momentous push dodge, or she activates the Screeching Banshee ability, which we'll get to. And on 7, she has a 4 damage. So she's got that 4, which means if she gets it, she can really stick the damage in. And then we'll move on to her character plays, guys. So the first one is Lure, costs 2 with an 8-inch range. Target enemy model immediately moves its base and moves directly towards this model, maybe use once per turn. Brilliant, really gets stuff where she needs it, or but more importantly, that coupled with Puppet Master can really line someone up for the casket.
Absolutely, yep. That's your 101 of how to get somebody in the casket, drag somebody across the table, and then kill them.
Lord and Puppet Master them, and everyone else
away
waiting.
From the rest of their players.
Absolutely. And then her second character play, guys, is Screeching Banshee, which she activates on 6 successful players on a playbook. Target enemy model suffers -4/-4 move and 2 damage.
Yeah, situationally useful because you probably just want to be going for the massive damage with her. But if it comes up and you've got a good opportunity for it, go for it.
Absolutely. So, Cosset. Thoughts?
So, just to sum this up for people, just in case you haven't kind of figured out how much damage she's going to do yet, looking at her playbook, she's got that 4 at the end. If she goes into, let's say they're put in the perfect situation, she charges at Boar, and the Boar is already engaged with Dirge, so she's going in with Crazy, she's rolling 12 attack dice, because she's 4 up to 7 for Crazy, 11 for the charge, and 1 for the bird. So, she's going to hit 10 of those, she's going to miss twice on average, which means that she's going to do the 4 becomes 5, and then Momentous 2 becomes 3. She's doing 8 damage on a charge attack.
Which was free.
Which is absolutely free. And she buys 2 more attacks, which on average is going to probably do another 4 damage each, or possibly more. I think I'm sure 7 damage, 8 dice. She's going to do another 4 to 5 damage on each swing after that. So she's piling in 16 to 18 damage on a guy that's defense 2. So she really can put the hurt on people. This is her strongest point, and we already know that she's a glass cannon. We've talked about her having no armour. She's only got 12 hitboxes, so using her and keeping her alive is the difficult part. But if you can line up these charges and really put the hurt on people, this is where the Morticians will get their victory points from taking players out. It's through a combination of Graves hitting people, Obulus doing a bit of damage, and then Cosset just coming in and tearing their head off.
Exactly. So that, guys, is Cosset. Hope you've enjoyed a rundown of each of the characters individually. What we'll do is we'll probably put me and Jamie back on camera now. Sorry, you're going to have to look at us again. But we'll probably have a talk about the team as a whole, maybe even potential union choices, and a look at some Mortician tactics. So we'll see you once we switch over, guys. Hello, guys. Welcome back. And as you can see, we've set up a bit of a table here. We're going to demonstrate a couple of the sort of tactics, if you will, and plays that the Morticians can chain together to do some really interesting stuff. So we're going to start with Obulus, and I'll hand you over to Jamie for this one, and he'll talk you through it. As you can see, we've got the Morticians versus the Butchers. I'm sure you can see it there. Ox is holding the ball midfield just behind Gast, and I'll let Jamie talk you through what's about to happen. Cheers, guys.
Okay, so we're going to talk about one of the uses of Puppet Master. So you can actually, from this position, Obulus is a good 20 inches or so from the opposing goal. But with enough influence on him, I'm just going to show you with the full 8, you can actually get a goal from where he is, even though he hasn't got the ball to start with, and he's miles away from the opposing goal. He can do a very Shark-style goal just because of the power of Puppet Master. So we're not going to roll any dice, we're just going to sort of talk through the theory and what's likely to happen, even though dice can do you over if you get unlucky. But, as an example, if Obulus was starting his activation, we know he's 8 inches away from Ox. He gets his Shadow-like 2-inch dodge. We'll have that directly towards Ox. He then does a Puppet Master onto Ox.
So he spends 4 of his 8, yeah.
Which we say he's going to hit, so he gets his 1 refund back for hitting it. Ox will then do a pass. He becomes a friendly model and does a pass to Obulus. So again, we'll say he hits the pass. You do roll a kick dice for Ox, but he's kicked 3-6, so we'll say he's going to hit that. Because that's a friendly pass, it then generates a momentum point for the Morticians, which Obulus can then spend to do pass and move, or give and go, which one of the two it is. So he dodges 4 inches up with the ball. He hasn't used his normal movement yet, and so far he's moved, I think it was 6 inches. So now, we'll do a charge into Rage up the table. So he's moving another 6 inches into melee of Rage, and now he's only 8 inches away from the goal. So all he's got to do is, on his playbook, he's got a 1-inch momentous dodge, so if he doesn't attack for that, he's charged, so he's probably going to get more than that. But let's say he does a 1-inch momentous dodge, attacks again, gets another 1-inch momentous dodge. He's now within range of the goal. He's kicked 2-6. You spend some of your momentum on having the goal, having the shot. Spend another momentum point on throwing an extra die at it, and chances are you're likely there to get a goal. So, even from that perspective, yeah, you also get the goal celebration, dodge 4 inches. If you want to keep Obulus really safe, you can then have him dodge off into the background over here somewhere, and he's able to do it again next turn if you really want to. I mean, it's a lot of influence to put that in there. Just an example of what kind of things you can do with Puppet Master. You can not have the ball, have Obulus move from here all the way through to here and have a goal on his own.
Yeah, it really shows how, in using momentum in some of his plays, you can really get him across it, and it just shows one of the many sort of uses of Puppet Master and how you can disrupt the turn of play and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, the most common use of Puppet Master is just to move enemy players around. It is a very powerful ability just to have other players in a position they don't want to be in the first place. But actually using the ball mechanics in combination with Puppet Master has some even more explosive uses of the ability, especially because it combos with give and go, pass and move. And in some cases, you can even have it snapshot.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of a Puppet Master pass that was snapshotted. Yep. And it's certainly frustrating. So that's that one. What we're going to show them next?
I think next we're going to have a look at these. Well, we can do some more on Obulus, but I was going to have a look at the uses of Gast after that.
Cool. Tell you what, we'll do one more on Obulus and then we'll set up for Gast. Okay, guys, we've just moved a few things around. As you notice, we've brought Mist onto the pitch, and that is for Jamie to demonstrate another use that Obulus's Puppet Master can be used for. I'll let him talk you through it.
Okay, so in the last video we just mentioned about snapshot, potential for snapshots. We're going to demonstrate that one as well. We've got Obulus starting in a similar position right at the back of the field. This isn't kind of where Obulus is going to play most of the time, but just for an example of how you can show, you can have Obulus in the middle of the table. He's generally quite safe. Anyway, so he's only got 4 influence on him this time, and we're going to say the Morticians have got a couple of MPs on the table, call it maybe 2 or 3 from previous activations. Maybe we've triggered Rising Anger or something like that.
Yeah, again, a bit tricky to see, but the ball is on Ox at the moment. It's just behind him, if you can make that out. So, yep, there we go.
Okay, so another use of Puppet Master. We'll activate Obulus, get his 2-inch Shadow-like dodge, so he's only going to move up a little bit in this case. He's within the range for Puppet Master. Cast his Puppet Master for the 4 influence. In this case, he's not going to pass it to Obulus, he's actually going to pass it to Mist, who is a friendly Mortician player on this in this situation. So he gets the pass off to Mist. We've got enough MP to now have Mist make a snapshot reaction to being passed the ball. He's within his 8 inches of the goal. Spend some MPs on having a snapshot, he gets those 2 hits, and there's a Mortician goal. Again, from Obulus at the back of the field. He's still effectively helping you score a goal from right the way back here.
Yeah, worth noting as well that during the Puppet Master, Ox became a friendly model, so you do generate momentum from the pass, and you can do pass reactions as well, i.e. the snapshot or the give and go and stuff like that.
Correct.
So that's a couple of uses of Obelisk, guys. I hope it's shed some light for you guys maybe thinking about getting into the Morticians or looking at adapting your playstyle. Next, we're going to do something with Ghast, I think. Yep.
Okay, we're back in with Ghast. We're just talking about some of the uses of his abilities in terms of Fear and Rising Anger and how they can be used to great effect to disrupt enemy teams. In this particular case, Ox is again going to be the victim of our tactical discussion. So we're actually going to say it's Ox's activation in this case, and he's going to come up and attack Ghast. We'll say he's done his jogging, he's been in this kind of position, and he's made a jog up to attack Ox with some of his influence. Straight off, Fear comes into play straight away. As soon as he wants to declare an attack, he's not only spending 1 influence, but actually having to spend that second one, spending 2, and he's not even charged. This is just a walk in a normal bot attack. 2 of his influence gone, and because Ox can cause so much damage per attack, losing an entire extra attack, or to be able to do it in character plays, is a huge benefit.
Yeah, it's a potential 2, 3, 4 damage in some cases. Yeah, it is a big change.
So let's say the Morticians didn't have any momentum on the board at this point, but in fact that he's done this attack now, he's caused Rising Anger to trigger by causing some damage onto Ghast. So the Morticians have now generated 2 momentum points. So Ox is going to make another attack onto Ghast. Fear's gone now, so it costs him 1. But straight away now, even though we've had no MPs before, Rising Anger has given us 2, so we're going to declare a counter-attack with Ghast. So Ox does his attack, does a couple more points of damage to Ghast. It's probably hurt him quite a bit, to be fair, because it is Ox. Ghast then gets his counter-attack, rolls his 6 dice. Hopefully he's not going to completely rubbish this up for us. Ooh. In this particular case, we've gone completely the opposite direction and spiked it up.
So that proves, guys, Mortician dice are bent. It's just 6 dice and 5 of them are 6s. So if anyone would like to buy those for £20 each, please get in contact.
So let's take the averages here. So normally, if you're hitting Ox who's defense 3 and armor 1, you're going to miss 2 of those and take another one away from the armor. That's the averages. So on 2, if he hits the 2, that's a momentous knockdown or a 2-inch push. So if Ox had any more influence on him, let's say he had 5, and he's already done his jog. If we take the 2-inch push that's on Ghast's second column, that pushes Ox right the way back here, and he's just unable to make attacks at that point.
Being on the second column means he's probably going to get it off, and the fact that he's generating his own momentum usually means there's going to be very few players who can get in and just keep beating on him. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, alternatively, a really useful thing to do with Ghast, and to be honest, any 2-inch melee range heavy, is have him activate first in the Mortician team if you can, particularly against players with only 1-inch melee ranges, and have him walk to this kind of position where he's engaging both, 2 Butcher models here, Princess and an Ox. He is not in their melee ranges, but they are within his, and he's access to a momentous knockdown on his 2 column, or a knockdown and 2 damage on his 3 column. So he can knock down both these players at the start of a new turn before the Butchers have had any chance to generate momentum. So these players, if they want to get up and attack, they can't get up and move because they haven't got any MPs to clear conditions. They're just kind of stuck there until somebody else can generate momentum to help them out.
Absolutely.
So all the reasons why Ghast is such a fantastic disruption player. Easy access to knockdown, 2-inch melee range is really good, double push use of for counter-attack purposes. And Rising Anger helps you trigger those counter-attacks even when you haven't got any MPs on the table to start with.
Cool. There you go, guys. And next up, I think we're going to show you Cosset a little bit.
Okay, so we're now talking about Cosset. So there's, as we talked about before, I'm explaining that she's got quite a lot of damage potential on her card with Crazy and damage support, Dirge. If these kind of things are set up, getting the best use out of those abilities. Personally, I like to have Cosset not being the alpha strike of the team. She's not going to come in first. That's for players like Obulus with unpredictable movement, 2-inch melee range, good counter-attack abilities. He's fairly safe character to stick in early on. Along with Ghast, who's just explained his counter-attacks are powerful. Dirge can be a free activation that you can send in. If they want to take him out, they're going to suffer a -4 MPs for Dark Doubts. Graves as well, another resilient character. These characters can all go in before Cosset because she is the most vulnerable. She's a glass cannon. She gets some attention, she's just going to be taken out. So you really want her activating later on in the turn if you can. Earlier on gives her the opponent less chance to counter-attack them if they haven't got any MPs. But anyway, positionally speaking, you want her to be sort of towards the back of the field, charging in. In this case, we're going to show it in the perfect situation again. It may not always come up this way, but just as a perfect situation in the vacuum, she's activating later on. She's got her 2 influence here. Dirge is over here, which means that we want to be attacking somebody within 6 inches of him. He's got that 4-inch aura for damage support for Cosset. She then has her base size and then a 1-inch melee range on the top of that. So if you imagine, I'll just take Cosset. If she stood 4 inches away from the bird, she can attack somebody within 1 inch this way, and then she'll still be getting the damage buff all the way over here, even though the bird's back here. So, we have her here. She goes crazy, takes her 3 damage, charges into Ox. She's well within her charge range. Goes up to base, just on the off chance of a counter-attack. She has 12 attack dice. So she's got her 4 for a normal attack. She's gone crazy. She has charged for 4 more. And at the moment we have Gast, who's also engaging Ox, so she's got another one for ganging up.
So immediately that attack 4, which at first glance looks a little bit mediocre, you're suddenly throwing 12 dice at a charge.
Absolutely, yeah.
She can seriously charge herself up.
Okay, so we're going to throw these 12 dice. Hopefully we won't roll in all 6s like we did last time. A bit under average this time, to be honest. But that's still okay. So we got the 6 hits, take away one of those for armour. Again, on averages, you're kind of probably going to be hitting sort of around that many rounds, probably 7 or 8 hits. But we got the 5 this time. Flip Cosset's card over, which means we're most likely going to get some momentous damage on the table. Take the 3 momentous damage right in the middle of her playbook. It's a really lovely choice. 3 damage is a good number of damage. It's also momentous. Because she's within 4 inches of Dirge, she's going to be getting that damage support, so it's actually 4 momentous damage by a second attack. So she's now rolling for stand attack. Crazy is still being applied, and she's still got the ganging up from Gast. So you hit again. 2 misses, and 1 away for armour. That's a bit more average this roll. We can get that magical 3 momentous damage again, so she's...
That is a sweet spot, isn't it? The 4 hits for the 3 momentous damage, which becomes 4.
Absolutely. So she's now done 8 damage to Ox and got 2 MPs on the table.
So she spent 1 influence, and Ox has taken 8 damage already.
Absolutely.
Should go again.
Last one. Probably going to be getting that same result again, I imagine.
Yeah.
So again, 2 misses, 1 off for armour. Again, that 3 becomes 4 momentous damage. She's taken 12 for the cost of 2 influence.
Yeah.
You've got 3 MPs on the table. You're also probably going to then spend 1 of those MPs to heal the 3 damage from Crazy.
So as you'll see on screen, Cosset goes back to full health, and you come out of a 2 influence activation doing 12 damage with possibly a slightly under average charge roll as well. But you've done 12 damage, you've generated 2 momentum after the charge. It really shows the way she's to be used. Obviously, as Jamie mentioned, better off in the second wave, because left there exposed, she will then be targeted. But Cosset for me is a massive damage output player, and when used right, she's dangerous, very dangerous.
For sure. I mean, as we just said, keeping her safe is very important. From this position, if you haven't activated any of these models, they can then push onwards. If Ox has taken 7 damage, he's only got 19 to start with. Only 19. He's got 19 boxes. If he's taken 7 before Cosset activates, she's then just taking him out completely.
Yeah.
You know, if she was an early activation, you can then push on with these other wave models and get even deeper into the enemy team.
Absolutely.
Which again keeps her safe because she's got a bracket of other players around her. So keeping her from the other guys' attentions. There's Cosset.
Cool, so I hope that shed a bit of light onto how to use some of the Mortician players. What we'll do now is we'll go back in front of camera, we'll have a quick chat, maybe talk about union choices, things like that, and then we'll wrap up, guys. Cheers. Hello guys, so there we have it. We've had a quick rundown of all the players. We've also had a quick look at certain tactics and situations where the Morticians can shine and really do some interesting things. So do you want to give us another bit more talk just about the Morticians on the whole? Maybe what sort of team would you usually run? What would be your Morticians team, 6 players?
6 I tend to run actually has missed in it a lot of the time. So, as much as I like Graves, I do really like him, but you've got to have a bit more sort of football options in your team, because Morticians are kind of on, if you imagine all the teams on a scale, most football, most fighting, Morticians are one of the near central teams, but their football skills are not naturally that great.
No.
So you often are going to benefit a lot from bringing in Mist as a union striker.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the times you'll take out Graves or Silence. You may not like Cosset. I'd leave him one of the big guys, probably Gast. So my lineup a lot of the time is going to be Obulus, Dirge, Cosset, Silence, Gast, and Mist. You've got a lot of options on the table there. You've got some good fighting options because you've got Cosset, Obulus and Gast, who can do some good fighting, and Obulus is also a good footballer, as we've seen with Puppet Master.
Yeah, of course.
And Mist is just a fantastic out-and-out striker, and then in combination with Puppet Master as well, you can just go through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you had to highlight one weakness of the Morticians, it would be the football element, and Mist being one of the better footballers in the game.
For sure, they do need to rely on that a bit as well, because if they come up against another team that can fight better than them, which there are a few, if you just go to fight the Butchers will beat you up.
Yeah.
If you just got to fight the Brewers will also beat you up, and certain styles of union teams will do the same. So you have to rely on the fact that you are one of those midline teams that can switch the play a little bit. If you're losing the combat, you can switch to some football skills, or the opposite way around. If you're losing the football to the fisherman, which you will 9 times out of 10, you can switch to just beating the living daylights out of the players.
Yeah, and it works well. Well, I hope this video has been helpful if you're looking at buying the Morticians or getting into the game and just wanted a tactical overview of the Morticians. Thanks, Jamie, for coming and helping me.
Thanks for having me on.
I figured we'd get a slightly more experienced voice than me for this one. As always, please like the videos and subscribe to the channel. It helps me massively. And there'll be another video soon. Cheers, guys.